Host is enabled local. Oh, stream is live.
Hey Travis, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Kelvin?
I'm doing real well. Happy 2026.
Happy 2026.
We are back with Battle of the Bots 2.0, our update on what's coming down the pipe. We've each taken some number of these agents, added a couple, removed a couple. We've got some comments and commentary we're going to give on the fly about these tools. Let's get started because we've got a lot to go over, so I think we really should dig in. Now, given that we have a lot to go over, I'll show you here. This is the lineup for today. We've got Claude Code, Cursor, Goose, OpenAI's Codex, and Google's antigravity, and there may be some honorable mentions toward the end of this. We're going to have to time box this so that we can keep on track. So what I did was let me add this guy to the stage. There we go. Mr. Timer is going to join us. And Mr. Timer is running in a Claude artifact in my GUI app over here on my Mac. So I live coded a timer to try and keep us on track as we go through this. So what do you think?
Like, it'll be awesome. Love the fact that it's been vibe coded.
Totally.
It really fits the theme here.
All right. Well, let's dig in. I think we should start off with what's new in Claude Code. I'm going to start our timer on Mr. Timer and we'll see how this works.
Let's hope that we can stick to the time box.
Okay, here we go.
What's new in Claude? What isn't new in Claude?
I know.
I feel like every day there's something out, or at least every week, right? There's a new release. I think the big news for me is the hit 2.x for releases. It was really interesting to see the transition kind of like through the 1x branch to the 2, just things get better. Everyone really start to adopt and lean into it. What are the big fixes that I'm interested in? I love the skills hot reloading. Like, this was a big gripe for me. I'd go make a couple skills. I forgot to exit. I got to get back in. Oh, there it is. Was really surprised. I didn't know they had done it. I just made a skill. It was there suddenly. I was like, oh, that's very convenient. Additionally, the forking of subagents prior to the recent releases here, the subagents ran in the same context. So you had these kind of like large context pollution type problems if you're running agents. Really like that, can ask it to go run an agent or get an agent to run a sub-agent, and contextually it stays constrained and focused on potentially the tasks that I'm asking it.
Yeah, it's interesting how they've approached the sub-agents thing, and it feels almost hidden, but if you know it's there, you can leverage it.
Right. It is one of those kind of like they put it out, probably the whole bunch of other things that came out at the same time. Super useful. You got agents, you got tools, you've got skills, you've got slash commands, you've got a whole like ecosystem of ways to capture repeatable processes as you continue to lean into the tool there. Other things, improve session control. They got a slash command teleport and remote env for, think kind of like CI debugging, always a bit of an issue trying to get into the actual remote environment to see what's happening.
Oh, that's interesting. So you can have a Claude running and then remote into that session?
I believe it pushes you, it hooks into the remote session. So like it's kind of pushed, it's off doing the things in the remote session. Rather new, haven't done a lot with it, just a little bit to get familiar. Like I said, there's so much new coming out that it's hard to explore every little piece of the detail. Workflow, we mentioned skills. Swarms is something that was discovered, I believe, a few days ago. There's a switch. Gastown is the big news around agentic swarm type things. I think a lot of other folks are headed that way. There is a switch you can enable to start kind of getting more multi-agent type capabilities within Claude Code here. I haven't done anything because it is so new. I just heard about it. I wasn't even sure it was real. Spent a fair bit of time making sure that it was legit.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from doing this research that some of these things came out yesterday. Literally yesterday.
There we go. Right. Staying on top as best we can here. We got longer running processes and search history. really useful. I find as Claude's kind of gone more the 1x to the 2x here, I'm able to walk away. I definitely go make coffee, let it do its thing on full YOLO mode, come back, see what it's looking like. Not production work necessarily, but like some side projects, some bigger things I'm exploring, I'm poking around with. One thing I was really surprised to see was the security review / command. Now, I've been trying to do something similar with agents and skills and various degrees of success. I tried theirs and it worked better out of the gates than what I put together. So I was like, okay, cool. They're getting serious. They're starting to understand that isn't just the let's make some code and pass it along. It's bring in some of these other concerns that enable software development. Let me do the security review.
I wonder why they did that as a / command as opposed to just releasing a stock set of skills that you can just call into.
I think skills are per repository, so you'd have to bring them into your repo.
In Claude Code, you just have skills per repo.
If I remember correctly.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember which tool does what, but
I'll have updates on what Codex does here, which is kind of interesting.
Nice. Better GitHub Actions integration as well. Also did a little on my own exploration there. Ran up a really big bill on token spend. Decided maybe let's pause that one. Similar to anyone who's probably done any real-time evals, LLM as a judge in agentic systems, if you let it run big samples, you're going to have some big bills there to catch a few things. Excuse me. So, just continuing to really lean into Claude's utility. I think it's interesting that it's really started to bridge this agentic paradigm. I was slower to adopt it in the beginning because I'm like, oh, it's not like a cursor where I've got an IDE, something familiar, and maybe a chat to the side. It's very like give it something to do and hope it does it type of experience. And I've really come to embrace that. I'd say, it's mainly my daily driver now. I'm in it constantly. It's really reliable. I do often let it go forward on, reasonably sized changes. Not everything gets to just automatically get accepted, but I'm trusting it a lot more. I really feel that it's become a good coworker.
Where's Claude Code on sandboxing? I know a lot of the other ones have implemented some OS specific usage of their existing sandbox tools, like macOS's seatbelt, for example.
Oh, okay. I don't have a real clear picture on that one.
Okay.
I don't do much. I haven't had to worry too much about that at this stage.
And I wonder because they've just released in the GUI Mac app, you've got Cowork you mentioned here, but they also have got Claude Code embedded in that. And my guess is that they're having to follow along with the standard Mac sandboxing because it's running in an app.
Oh, right. I would imagine that they're whatever the base OS is kind of forcing them to constrain to. But yes, Claude Cowork has been an interesting experience. I reactivated my Claude subscription just for that. I usually use API credits if I'm using Claude Code. I found the credits with the subscription generally aren't enough. I'd probably put myself in the power user category. I'm rounding out close to $100 a day.
Tell me what you tried with Cowork. I have not had a chance to play with it yet.
I tried to do the thing that seemed obvious. I'm like, hey, make me some notes on these tools that I can use as speaker note. And it did a horrible job. I was really unimpressed. I was
still early days.
That's what I was like. Hey, I get it. You guys are there trying to figure it out. It feels like early Chat GPT 4 with what it's responding with, but it's a different domain, right? It's about getting the feature in, getting the feedback. And I think to their point, using Claude Code to build that feature in a week and a half and get it out is really impressive. It's hard to get release cycles like that in today's world of software, quite honestly.
Well, it's interesting because we've gone through a couple of these hype cycles, and when OpenAI released 4.0, the Omni model, there were a lot of promises made during those pitch presentations that we've still not seen fully realized.
Right, and I think that's the problem with benchmarks to some degree. You're optimizing for a very specific outcome here that's not necessarily a general purpose use case. And
my
experience has been you start to see some of those cracks as you pull these models for various needs.
Indeed. All right. Well, we got any last parting comments on Claude Code before we head on?
If you haven't given it a spin, highly recommend you just pull it down, throw a few credits on, and see what it can do for you.
Nice. Well, look at that, Mr. Timer. Oh, you even gave me a little noise. I don't know. You probably couldn't hear the noise. I got a noise by my little vibe coded timer.
Love it.
All right. Well, the next one up here. Let me get the starter reset, and here we go. Back on now. Cursor. You mentioned Cursor in your previous review of not being a terminal-based app. Let's go.
So yeah, I mean, lots of things are happening in the cursor world as well. After oh gosh, I'd say for a while this was my go-to. This was my driver. Transition to Claude now. I do come back here occasionally for things. I'll start with the CLI. So they were traditionally kind of a very IDE kind of based application, chat side panel, some
Yeah.
autocomplete, the standard kind of play in the AI assisted world. Really took off, got big traction. I think they're still, fairly appealing to the enterprise world. But part of what they released was a CLI toolkit to kind of start getting a little bit closer to the command line, opening up
Yeah,
some
and that was part
options
of their
there.
releases from last fall was like single sign-on and SAML support and very enterprisey features.
Yes, yes, and I think it's a good play. Not to be cast shade on any of the other tools out there, but like I find a lot of folks that started on like GitHub Copilot find that it doesn't perform as well as maybe some of these other tools out there are evolving, and they want something enterprise aligned that still works from an IDE perspective that they can get their teams on. So I'm seeing folks in the Copilot world starting to evaluate Cursor as an alternative.
Yeah, makes sense.
To move to. And it does. I completely get it. It's generally my recommendation these days for when I encounter those situations. It's like, well, have you considered Cursor? Like, it does these things. We use it internally, and we've got a lot of different kind of code bases. Like, if I could say we were just Python, like maybe we'd pick maybe more of a Claude, but like, we've got Java and .NET
Oh
and
yeah.
all sorts out there. So this has kind of been our de facto standard for getting our engineers up to speed, getting them familiar with the process. Um, you know, their composer model is really useful. I've got one gentleman who was on a project where it was a really old legacy app, I think it was VB code, and it needed to move it to something more modern. He used the composer model, and within a week, he had a real slick POC level piece of software he could put in front of folks and start getting feedback and iterating on. So, maybe vibe coding is not right for every scenario, but back to that quick feedback loop, it's really useful for getting
Mm-hmm.
something out there, and understanding directionally whether or not you're on the right path. So big shout out to the composer model. I think there's definitely some solid use cases in what they're doing there and trying to become more proprietary, not just relying on raw frontier models. Agent hooks, being able to inspect things kind of midstream. I think this is another enterprise play, secrets, what is the MCP server potentially doing? Lots of value in being able to get a little bit more under the hood than just kind of using it as a black box. As well, like I think their visual browser components, so they've got a browser integration, so I can go like select a DOM element and say, hey, you're not very good at like aligning things visually. This is off center. Please fix it. Common concern if you're in the more UI
Yeah.
oriented
Yeah.
space here. It's a lot of what I hear from folks. That's always been an issue. I used to take screenshots and paste it in the chat and be like, this thing here is not right. Please fix it. So I love the fact that the feedback loops are getting closer, just shorter. It's just more integrated. It's an overall better experience here. And I like the fact that they're also branching out, kind of like I was alluding to with Claude with the security review. There's a code review component that just required a company here, and I've got their bug bot in the workflow. So like trying to get bugs spotted potentially a little bit earlier. This is a little bit more on the code review side. What comes
Mm-hmm.
out? How do you deal with code reviews? What's useful? What's not? I think it's been a challenge that the industry's taken on and getting better at. I'm starting to use them a lot more, rely on them a lot more than I used to. They used to be quite nitpicky and maybe not as trustworthy, but they're definitely adding that extra layer.
But that seems like they're bringing true value by acquiring something that's a complementary service and tacking or adding it into their offering. That would lead me to want to try Cursor.
I agree, and I think it kind of adds to that enterprise use case. Being able to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, like we're an all-in-one solution. You don't have to go pay 3 different vendors for your agentic tooling stack. Like you can just lean into us, and we'll accommodate you at all
Yeah.
phases."
And what's Cursor's standpoint on the like agents MD file and having a centralized management that IT can control some of those guardrails.
They do. They're leaning into that too. I think there's a Teams component, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, for shared context and guardrail and like all the things that start to elevate up as you need to think about governance, right? Not just accelerating the dev cycle, but like how do I scale this to teams? How do I scale this to the org? Like how do I de-risk or standardize some of these processes? Now, it's still early days. I think it's a good step in the right direction. Is it the be all and end all? Probably not. There'll probably be other things that come out, but the fact that they're thinking
Yeah.
about it, they're trying to align that way, really feels like the right direction.
It's funny you say early. It's early days, but so much has happened. It's crazy.
It
And I
really
agree
is.
with you. I still think we're very early. I don't think we've seen what the actual end game is on some of these tools, on any of these tools, actually.
No, I think we're far, far from it. I do appreciate the fact that they're all rapidly iterating, they're all evolving. There's starting to become some sense of convergence. Cursor also was primarily just a autocomplete and chat side panel, but they do
Yep.
have a whole agentic flow now where you can go launch agents in the background and do things. I'm a little on the fence about that perspective. I get like a swarm or a collection of agents working towards a goal. I struggle to keep tabs on like three, Claude terminal sessions, let alone like half a dozen agents doing different
Yeah.
things in the background. I'm not sure I would necessarily produce my best work if I had
Yeah, I
to make
couldn't use it.
sure.
I couldn't use a dozen interns effectively. Like I'm not going to use
No.
a dozen agents. But that's not to say that if you haven't truly thought this through and really worked on the plan, and so actually speaking of like working on the plan, some of these tooling are now moving toward a spec-driven um, target. And is Cursor heading that way, or is it Cursor kind of what's their plan mode?
They have a plan mode, very, very much so. A lot of
Yeah.
these tools are starting to see that as a best practice. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I would say they were probably one of the first ones to start advocating for it. I was in a webinar
Yeah.
back in the earlier days where they were saying this is a kind of best practice technique. Plan your stuff out, then feed it to the agent. Now that's all been rolled into the agent. We don't have to do that handwork anymore. Uh, Generally, anything you can do to keep alignment, it's no different than if I was working with Jane or Bob as a colleague. Like I'd
Right.
want to make sure we're aligned on what the goals are, how we're
Yep.
going to get there, not expecting them to produce the perfect artifact the first time. I think that's a nuance people maybe miss when they start dealing with AI. Oh, it's a computer, it'll get it right. Well, it's deterministic. No, it's not.
Right.
It's probabilistic. It's going to get a best effort at what you've given it to output there.
We've not
Um,
fixed that problem yet. It's
no,
still the real deal.
absolutely. Still need me in the loop to help drive it and achieve those outcomes.
Yep. We'll have some more on that later. I've got some interesting ones to put up there in the honorable mentions. Okay, that perfect timing on that one. I will reset this timer. We will head over into the next one, which is going to be Goose. Let me crank up the timer on this one. A lot again happening in Goose World. So if you aren't familiar, Goose is by the folks at Block, who are the people behind like the Square payments and a lot of interesting stuff. Actually, I'll probably lead with the last one, which is Goose has now been contributed to the AIFF or AAIF, sorry, for the Linux Foundation. So basically, Linux Foundation has created a governance body to protect certain AI tooling projects. Things like the agents.md file from Anthropic is part of that. Goose is now part of that. I think you can look for other ones to be joining. A bunch of big names have all signed on and given some money. So it gives some structure and governance around making some industry standards for working in these pieces. So that's really cool. The big news for me though also was plan mode. There's now multiple plan modes inside of Goose. So you've got the standard plan, which is like the back and forth to understand deeply. So if you just hit the slash command slash plan, that will dive you into that. You also have the ability to now pass Goose instruction files. So if you've got a Markdown file already set up, you can run the Goose command line passing it that file, and then it will spawn up the tasks, and you can run this in like CI/CD, so for a fully headless experience. And now you can basically pre-plan and then direct the work that's happening. And then the last one, which is the Explorer, the conversational discovery aspect of planning. There's a built-in tool in Goose called To Do, and that To Do extension watches for complexity. And anytime it sees you ask for things that may involve two or more steps, it will automatically create a checklist in the background. and you can optionally write that out into the file system if you want to kind of track it. But it's going to actually start doing some of this planning automatically. That's on by default to actually create that to do, which is kind of cool. I think that's a good move in the right direction of helping these tools not try and do more, overreach and do more than they're supposed to at any one point in time. So that's pretty cool. Another fun one is the mobile clients. If you followed Goose early on, they had an iOS and an Android client that were agents running on the devices, which is dangerous and sounds possibly terrible and scary. They've backed away from that tack, not completely, but for the released version of the iOS client, which is actually production in the App Store, you can get it today. It will actually talk back to your desktop. So you go to your desktop Goose app, you launch the tunnel. It uses Cloudflare's durable operators, I think is what it's called. And so it launches one of those up for you. You scan a QR code with your mobile device, and now you can actually keep tabs on what Goose is doing from wherever, from your mobile device. So you're traveling and you want to use a Goose that's sitting at home on your more powerful desktop, you can totally do that now with Goose with their various mobile versions of this. The original kind of proof of concept they called Gosling for their apps, which was a agent running on the device. Still in the background, the CEO accidentally triggered a shopping automation at some point, and stuff showed up at his door that he wasn't expecting. So there's definite dangers. They're definitely dog fooding it, and so they've seen the way. I like the new approach of keeping tabs or communicating with an agent that's running on my local desktop. I think that's a smarter way to go there. Next bit that's kind of interesting is going to be the MCP apps evolution. I think last time I gave this talk, we talked about MCP UI, which was Goose's way of building MCP rich applications. Now there's a standard. So MCP apps, as of December, is basically a new way to build a rich MCP server. So when I make a call to an MCP, I install an MCP into my agent, I make a call out to an MCP service, it can return to me a visual component that I can interact with. So their tutorial has a really nice one where you basically want to change seats on a flight. So it has a dummy URL you can connect to. It gives you back a UI. You can click on a seat and it says, thanks, your flight's been confirmed. Here's your new seat and stuff. So I think that's going to make open up a lot of interesting things for the more GUI clients. So like the Claude GUI, the ChatGPT GUI, the Goose GUI, for not necessarily developers, but for everyday users who would like to interact or would like to have a more seamless chat experience with customer service agents. Now they can provide back a GUI to the end user instead of having to chat back and forth with text only. So that seems pretty cool. And it's again, early days for that. Technology is obviously very rapidly evolving, but that seems like a good step in the right direction. The next one here is Code Mode MCP. So these are all running in sandboxed environments. So on Code Mode MCP, I think it uses the native sandboxing environments for whatever platform you're on, whether you're on Windows or on Mac or Linux. So this actually will generate this. Actually, no, take that back. That's Codex. Because of doing this, like all this research, they're all kind of blurring together in my head. The Code Mode MCP for Goose is actually going to spin up little containers using, they had an open source OB or something like that.
OB, okay.
Yeah, to spin up a little JavaScript container. And on the fly, it creates an MCP client and server. And then you talk to the code running in that container, and it builds programmatically or on the fly functions that you can call for these kinds of sandbox code. So you can build it, have it run inside that container, and it has no access to anything outside of its runtime, which I think is kind of interesting. That's a theme I've seen across all these, is they're all trying to focus on sandboxing, security, how do we become more enterprise friendly, how do we give the user a level of confidence that this thing is not going to just thrash their machine. I think is obviously the right direction to go. I think so. That's pretty cool. And then we're definitely seeing more providers. So there's 25 plus LLM services now supported. So obviously all the frontier model, people out there. There's also a whole bunch of MCP servers that have spawned, like 3,000 plus MCP servers in the ecosystem. At Block alone, they say they've got about 60 plus internal MCP servers that they're leveraging as part of deploying this tool across their enterprise. I thought that's pretty cool.
What's your experience been like integrating MCP into whatever your tool of choice is?
I was like hot and cold on MCP. I think last year was definitely the year of like MCP. Everyone got excited about MCP, and then everyone realized, oh, I still have to like secure MCP, and I still have to have authentication and authorization for MCP. And at the same time, it seemed very easy to drop back to good APIs and good command line tools. So if you're using a terminal-based, agent like one of these, it has full access to every CLI app that you have on your machine or you grant access to. So for example, I don't need a GitHub MCP if I've got the GH command line tool installed, and it has good documentation. It's a well-known API to use. So I think those are smart, and that was kind of where I was leaning. Now, as I've seen the MCP apps demo, I got excited again about MCP, especially from a more non-developer standpoint. That we could now build MCPs that can be used in chatbots that give people a richer customer service experience. So I think that's really where it's going to be at. And then, like I mentioned here at the very end, that Linux Foundation, Agentic AI Foundation is what that AIF stands for. That just shows me that there's maturity going on. When the Linux Foundation makes a working group or a foundation as a subgroup, you're going to see things take off. I mean, I think that's what happened with Kubernetes, with the CNCF, because you felt like there was a real governing body behind it, and it wasn't just some group of cowboys at Google who had built a thing.
Uh-oh. Well, looks like we have lost Kelvin. Not too sure what happened there. Let's give him a minute, see if he comes back. All right.
Add myself back in here. Oh, I can hear myself. That's weird. Oh, I guess I got to add my state. Hold on. Stand by. There we go. Are you hearing me twice or just me?
Just hearing you the once.
That's always fun.
Yeah, sorry, that's a tough one.
Yeah. You know what? I'll grin and bear it. We'll endure it. Okay. Moving right along. Always have this is the second time we've had technical difficulties with StreamYard.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is odd. Okay, well, let's head on to Google Antigravity. I will restart our timer.
Awesome. I'm just thinking there's one feature request I have for Mr. Timer. Go negative if we go over.
I know. Okay. Well, I'm not gonna live code that while we're on the live stream.
No, let's keep it to minimal interruptions for today. Absolutely. So new contender, Google's Antigravity. I guess it makes sense, right? They didn't have a tool out in the space, really, wanted to get in and become a key player. I think it's interesting take. Like, I really like that it's so agent forward. They still have the traditional, kind of chat panel type option, but they've got a whole separate agent panel where you can pop out. There's an inbox. Once again, you can, ask a lot of agents to go do a lot of work. I understand there's ways of kind of working within that space. I think it's just me as an operator trying to keep track of like all the different things that have been delegated out. They've got an inbox, right? So like if it needs to raise an issue, it can put a message in the inbox. You can say, yep, that's okay. Go do that thing. Trying to solve that like interactivity component, like I guess so you don't get like a bunch of like agents all screaming at you. There's a way to kind of manage what's going on. Of course. Like having 12 interns in a room. What do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Give me a minute, please. Like I've been there. I once taught a whole like 13 students basically like intro to like software and getting them ready for the industry, and it was often a little chaotic. So I can appreciate that. So I think it's a nice take. I like the naming, really trying to like, I guess, embrace the paradigm shift here, make sure things are moving in the right direction. I like the fact that it's very planning forward, right? Everything it does makes a plan. Everything, even in the chat to the side, I still get a plan tab with like, here are the steps I'm going to go after. Here's me going after the steps,
which I do like that.
is useful because like otherwise it gets lost in the chat. Even if like Cursor does it or maybe even Claude does it, like I don't necessarily. I mean, I know I can probably open up the to-do list or other things, but it's not evident. It's not obvious. It's not in my face. So that's a nice change of pace there. The fact that you can chat with the items as well, also quite intuitive. I definitely need to keep digging into it. It's just, I think for me, it's a matter of finding projects or side projects to keep exploring these tools with. But maybe it's a time to bring some of my old projects back, ones where I got stuck and the tooling ran short. Let's see. It also has an integrated browser component, a little bit better than I believe Cursor's. You can get it to automate and do things. I believe in the other tools like Cursor, you're still using for automation. You'd be still doing some kind of like MCP
Yeah,
playwright type
I
thing,
did play in the browser. It was really nice.
which is I think a missing piece of the puzzle. That's been my experience. Has been just that feedback loop around. Okay, cool. Like how do I? Oh, you can go test it now. Great. That's super awesome. Um, Model support. Well, obviously Gemini. I don't think there's any surprise there. Claude, I was a little surprised by, but very happy to see that those two were kind of the big contenders. And then the open source version of GPT, which I haven't done any coding with, but from like a chat perspective, is okay. I do a lot of writing, so sometimes it's nice to just throw it at it and say, well, what do you think of this? I've asked Claude, I've asked, regular Gemini, I've asked ChatGPT. Do you give me a slightly different perspective? But it's there, it's supported. Maybe they'll open up some more open source type things like Olama and be able to run.
I was going to ask you to have support for Olama.
Not that I could see.
Yeah.
But today's a different day, so who knows the way things move. MCP server ecosystem, very well supported. You got integration of Firebase, Google Cloud, all the integrations you would expect there. And I think to our earlier conversation, MCPs definitely have a role to play. I'm very much on the fence as to how much value they add in a dev capacity always. I think from an automation or task-oriented perspective, I can see it. From a dev perspective, the one I use is a kind of an vector embedding for large code bases. So it doesn't just burn a whole bunch of tokens trying to search through. It's got just a little bit easier time trying to reference the piece of code that I'm talking
I was using one like that called Serena.
I think that's actually the one I'm using.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is good. Yeah, I've definitely found a benefit to it. I've got a code base on Vibe coded. It's about 400,000 lines right now, and I was burning a lot of tokens looking through that thing. So it's definitely reduced the cost, improved my efficiency quite a bit. So very happy about that. But I'm really keen to see where anti-gravity goes. I think they've got a good offering here. I think it addresses some real developer concerns. Gemini's a pretty good contender for a coding model. I don't use it a lot, but I've heard good things from the folks that do use it. I tend to stick with Claude. It works for me.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they came out with a splash for anti-gravity, and then I haven't heard much.
I've heard a little bit internally. I'm starting, more people starting to pick it up and explore. I would say they're probably making a very similar play to like Cursor, like that enterprise market. So maybe they're, yeah, you're right. But from like a marketing perspective, there was a lot of hoo-ha. It's gone quieter, but I still, think it's a solid experience.
All right. Very cool. Let's reset the timer and we'll hit the next one.
All right.
All right. We're on to OpenAI's Codex. Okay. Timer started. It's going to be tricky because I can still hear myself with a lag. So
it's like the hardest place to
it's going to be bad. Okay. Actually, that's better now.
Okay.
So what's new in OpenAI's Codex? We've got the new model. So GPT-5.2 Codex is now default. APIs is available. A big push in this release was cybersecurity as a tool for cybersecurity, and they've been trying to tighten up the guardrails around the model itself and how it can behave. So that the appendix that talks about the security piece of this is actually kind of an interesting read. They do a lot of benchmarking. Unfortunately, most of the benchmarking is around the conversational chat and not the code part, but they've been feeding it a lot more information so it can be useful as a cybersecurity tool. Other big news everyone's been waiting for has been skills. So skills is now replacing a thing they called prompts before, and it's using the new standard for skills. So if you create a skills folder, you can put a skill.md file in there and a couple subdirectories. You can actually have scripts, some documentation, some other resources that are associated to that skill, and now you can distribute that to your team. So there's actually a hierarchy of how it will look up what version of what skill is available. So you can have a skill in the repo, in a subfolder of the repo, in your home directory. And then the next bit here, the team config, is that you can actually have a shared config at those same layers, in addition to one that can be controlled by your IT department. So like MDM, computer system centralized can deploy a requirement. I think it's a TOML file. Yeah, requirements.toml to let your ITT team configure certain specific guardrails, like whether it has internet access or talk to certain tools, these kinds of things. So that's kind of interesting from a team standardization. These tools are definitely. I'm going to take these headphones off so I don't hear myself. This is really bad. You have to just wave your arms if you want to say something to me. It's okay. So the last bit here is a very, very new one. The next bit here, the connectors for phase 1. So if you are in your OpenAI account and you configure in your GUI, like the web chat GPT version of it, you've got the ability to configure apps and connections. They are starting to expose those to Codex. So you can now use some of those same connectors without reconfiguring them via your Codex account, which is kind of handy. That's very early days. Like that's still in beta. I think literally committed yesterday to the code repo. Another one that was committed yesterday is the collaboration mode. This one's actually quite interesting because they didn't have subagents before December, I believe, in the Codex world. This you can now enable with a they've got a feature enable flag for collab, and when you do that, you can now just say spawn a subagent or spawn an agent or send an input or wait for synchronization. So you can actually orchestrate multiple subagents in Codex very, very quickly and easily. So that shipped last week in the 0.90 version of that. So still very beta, still very early, but I think a very key feature for them to be using inside the product. You can see they've been focusing on these like collaboration, but also enterprise features. The new / commands here, so permissions for basically quickly auditing and approving various permissions that are allowed for this tools to be used. The skills workflow to allow you to enable or disable certain skills, branching sessions with fork, using PSSC subprocesses. It's kind of interesting. And then they've got, well, I mentioned already the cloud integration, that linear tags and cloud lists. That's basically a demonstration of them using the skills UI, the skills standard, to talk to those various connectors that are in your ChatGPT account. So that's what's going on with those pieces. And another thing I'll note on Codex is it actually allows you to use Olama. So if you want to use local models through your locally running Olama, you can start it up with a --OSS flag, and it will automatically connect to Olama, and you can start picking models and not just using OpenAI's models, which is pretty cool. One other thing, the sandbox, the security bits. So they are using the OS specific sandboxes. So I mentioned Mac OS Seatbelt. On Windows, I'm not as familiar with Windows, but you can use WSL to get the Linux version of sandboxing, and these is the same kind of sandboxing on Linux that they use in like Docker containers. So that's kind of interesting. Basically, they've gone from being Mr. Timer's getting it now.
Shucks.
Although my audio's fixed, that's a bonus.
All right. Well,
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Timer says I got 2 minutes left. That's crazy. I don't know what's going on my computer. It's not an internet connection because I'm still online and it's the same computer. So I don't know. Not sure. So Codex went from single agent scripting to now multi-agent orchestration, which I think you've seen all these tools move into that multi-agent orchestration timeline. What's kind of interesting is I think there's some honorable mentions. We did not talk a lot about Copilot. We didn't review it. We didn't talk about it at all. But I have a feeling there's a lot of people who are stuck out there in this world on Copilot. And I don't know if, Travis, if you had any kind of helpful words, advice for those folks. Like, how do they convince their IT teams, security officers to take that leap into one of these other tools, or are there tips and tricks they should be using if they're stuck on Copilot?
First off, I'm sorry. I get it. Like, right? Security policies, like corporate purchasing can kind of get in the way. I don't have a lot of tips and tricks. Like, I think I think there is just a limitation to at least how it's operating currently. Maybe they're kind of off doing a bunch of feature enhancements that'll get pushed out soon. My big advice would be Claude or Cursor are probably the two you really want to think about looking at. They do offer kind of those management dashboards for, at least some level of enterprise visibility.
And I'd say keep your eye on Codex. I feel like with their team layered management, that they're going to have that soon.
Yeah. I mean, Codex is a fast mover. Like, I looked at it not even 6 months ago, and I could barely get it to do anything. It switched the internet off before it built the software. I was like, well, I can't, that's no good to me. I need access to get packages. So.
Well, they're trying to be very security forward. So the default is in those sandboxes, the internet's off. Like, you don't have access out to the network by default, which I think is a good move, good stance. You got to explicitly say, I want to do this.
Right, but I mean, I was building .NET code, and I needed packages to come down. So I was in a bit of a weird situation where I was like, I don't actually know how to make this happen. So it was very early days. They had just released it. It was not a very serious contender. I think at that point it was very out there to explore. So it's one I haven't looked at a lot. I'd like to come back to, but yeah, I think back to the Copilot, like, try other tools, explore, experiment, make your case, appeal to the enterprise side, not just it makes me a faster dev, but like, if you're really trying to build a case, understand what your manager's concerned about, and really, find the features that align to his worries or her worries.
So, Travis, did you know if you are a Docker desktop user, you have a agent orchestration platform installed on your computer right now called C Agent?
I had no idea.
Yeah. So in the latest release, I put in the meeting notes or the slide notes for this slide, you'll find links to the release notes and the pull requests that actually enabled that and distributed that. But yeah, they've got an agent orchestrator that you can now use right from Docker. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I feel like Docker Desktop was supposed to be my container orchestrator, not my AI agent orchestrator, but I guess it's adjacent. What are your feelings on that?
I don't know how to feel about that.
Because you have it. If you got Docker Desktop installed, you got it.
I think it's interesting and it's appealing, and I don't know about the orchestration. Like, I could see offloading for like sandboxing and other needs like that, but I'm not sure.
It looks nice. I mean, it looks nice. I've got a YAML or a JSON descriptor for it where you can basically configure. Here's my documentation agent. Here's my planner agent. Here's the front end agent. Here's a back end agent, and give it little scripts like system prompts that define what it's supposed to do.
Interesting. Okay. I guess another thing to put on my list to go play with.
Yeah. Especially since you probably already got it installed.
Right. It's there. It's very low friction. Just find a problem and go.
Very low friction. Also incredible. And then I don't know if you've checked this one out, but there's a Ralph Wiggum plugin built into Claude Code.
I heard about it. Once again, it's on my, there's so much. I'm just like, how do I find the time? Tell me a little bit more about what the Ralph Wiggum does.
The Ralph Wiggum plugin is basically a for loop. It's like, just try harder. Like, keep going, which I thought was kind of interesting. There's a couple people who've made some good YouTube videos out there describing it. But basically it's a for loop. It is a for loop that you specify what done means, and give it a maximum number of loops, and it will just go try harder until it can do the thing you've asked it to do.
How does it know when it's achieved its goal?
You literally put a string in there and it looks for, like, for example, if you say done condition, it uses the word done in all
Okay.
caps.
Oh,
And so you have to tell your whatever you're building when you're done, when you think you've reached completion and tests pass, output done, or whatever you say is done.
sure. Oh, interesting. Okay, so
I've not tried it. I just more for the memeness of a Ralph Wiggum plugin being an enterprise software. I thought that was kind of a unique position.
love it, love it. I mean, I think there's something to that though. Like my experiences would definitely be. Sometimes you do just need to tell it to try
Yeah,
a little harder.
I think that was the point of that one. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
if you've got Claude Code installed, I believe you've got access to the Ralph Wiggum plugin to turn it on.
I will check that out after this.
That link there goes to the code base for it. The yeah, exactly, a React agent loop, exactly like that. Next one on that list there, Gastown. We mentioned it a couple times already during this live session. Uh, how do you feel about spinning up 20 to 30 agents?
I think it's a wonderful experiment. I think I think it's an attempt at envisioning the future and understanding like potentially where we're going to be next year talking about agentic dev, January 2027, maybe sooner. I think it's a great way to burn tokens for sure. And
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, like, give us a quick rundown on Gastown. Like, there's a mayor, right? There's transports, there's beads, there's a whole bunch of this world, I believe. And every time I hear Gastown, all I can think of is from the quote from Thunderdome, like Master Blaster runs Bartertown. Like I just think of Bartertown is all I can think of.
right. So right, so it's got all the functions, right? All the pieces of the puzzle, like was the polecats to help merge into like
Yes.
the branches, and it's a I love the fact that it's not taking itself too seriously in the way it's presenting, but
Yeah.
I think underneath there is a real strong attempt to say, hey, look, there's a different way of thinking about this. There's potentially a different system out there, and I think if you can get all the pieces, all the little components, like who's remembering context and who's responsible
Yeah.
for pulling that in to work together and work well. Maybe they just need some Ralph Wiggum. It really talks about our role moving back to being far more vision and orchestration than even the level of code that I'm looking at now. Is this the end solution? I don't think so. But I think it speaks to some of the enterprise concerns that'll be coming down the lines as these
It
systems evolve. Like,
it definitely speaks. It speaks to me as a fever dream a little bit.
yeah, and I love that. I love that, like we're in this place where like people can put stuff out there and feel good about that. And
Yeah,
like,
that's true. It's
s-
true.
ex-
And I thought that was the craziest thing I was going to add onto this slide until I put the next one, which is Claudebot, which is now known as Moltbot because Anthropic's lawyers sent a letter. They went from no stars on GitHub to 60,000 stars almost literally overnight. Like it was ridiculous. But be careful because now there are hundreds of Claude bots. So Claude bot is a personal AI assistant that you run on your own device. Very, very local first, but it talks through all of your channels. This is not a coding tool necessarily. It is a help me rebook my flight, and it's supposed to go look in your email and log into your airline and do all these crazy things. And so it runs a gateway, and there are unprotected gateways out there because people have just with no care for their own safety installed this thing onto their local machines, and now people have access to their API keys and to whatever they want to do on those machines. It's kind of nuts. So it's called Moltbot. That is also a link to the main Moltbot site. They haven't they literally changed the name probably midway through the day yesterday. I'm not kidding because most of the docs still say Claudebot.
I think it speaks to the fundamentals, right? Like you still got to worry about all the other infrastructure and concerns when dealing with AI. I love the fact that it's out there, it's gaining traction. It can do things. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know how much I trust it.
I mean, I would spin it up in like a VM
Yeah.
on DigitalOcean or someplace where I don't care. I would isolate or insulate this thing against as much as possible to try it. I've not installed it and tried it. All I know is that my like social media feeds from yesterday blew up with this thing, and I was like, well, I better go look at it and mention it so that others can kind of be in the loop. So if someone says the word Claude bot to you tomorrow or today, you know what the heck they're talking about.
It's fast moving. I have no doubt that they use Claude likely to build the bot as well.
Oh, numerous tools are in that stack. They've got
Oh, okay.
Claude and Anthropic. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's a fascinating project. Again, early days. This may be the future we're looking at. I wouldn't discount it. I think this is people building the future that they want, but they don't know all the things that are going to come attack them necessarily.
Right. So the typical vibing problem, like focus on an outcome, not necessarily everything else that
Yes.
comes along with
Yep.
it.
100%. I think that's what that, and I think that's an interesting way to go if I was a startup founder and I could, I had an idea and it's in my head and it's hard to like explain it to somebody else. I can just go make an initial version of it. And now I could show someone like you, Travis, like, look at this thing. And you're like, Travis will be like, oh yeah, we could totally build that. I mean, even though you think you built it, but if you're
Yeah.
wise, you'll know the thing you built shouldn't be probably deployed or maybe shouldn't be deployed. I wouldn't say it, everyone would get it all wrong, but there's just a lot of experience and a lot of like sharp edges on the way down that I think people are going to be experiencing. And that's why they need to come to people like us to help build it for real.
Fully agree. That's been my experience. Anything, even I as an experienced engineer vibe, like there's still
totally,
a whole
100%.
set of phases after that before I'm like, I wouldn't even dream of putting this out there.
we know enough to know what we don't know and how dangerous this all is. It can be. But I think I love the fact that it's here and we're using it and it's exciting. Actually, I'll kind of lead into the takeaways slide here before I do. In a previous version of this talk, I put up here the Aider Chat leaderboard showing off some of the various models using a specific benchmark. Hadn't been updated since November. I don't know what happened to them. There's a couple other ones that are out there. This is from JetBrains, this AI Arena one. Obviously, Juni CLI scores well. I think that's pretty valid because people are independently submitting their results into this developer AI Arena place. There's also Terminal Bench, if you've not checked that out, for terminal-based TUI agent type tools. I just wonder if people don't care anymore on the benchmarks because all of them perform so dang well.
Right. I mean, I think we might be at that place where the model's really the thing driving a lot of this interaction. We've discovered the patterns. Everyone's kind of replicating that.
Yep.
And
we've reached peak, maybe not peak intelligence, but like a plateau of intelligence. And now it's about managing context.
100%. I would fully agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what's happening here. Yeah. So then key takeaways here for me has been that, shoot, this is the old slides. I have different takeaways. There they are. Boom! Look at that real-time update. I forgot to refresh my screen apparently. That everyone here is going toward multi-agent. Multi-agent orchestration is definitely this blowing up in all the tools. Every one of them seems to have it, even if it's hidden. Like the swarms aspects of like Claude Code, I thought was interesting. The planning piece, the spec-driven development. I think there's a spectrum of spec-driven development activity that's going on out there. You and I discussed this before we got on. I feel like that there's room for all parties, which what I like about Goose is they seem to account for that.
Nice. Yeah, I would agree. It's not a one size fits all, right? Like there's moments where you want to lean one direction or the other direction, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and then I changed my tune on the MCP ecosystem. I feel like I was poo-pooing it a little bit toward the end of last year, and I feel like it's kind of come back with the MCP apps piece, people getting more serious about it. I use it personally for meeting notes. Like Fireflies has a wonderful MCP service on their note taker. If you haven't checked that out, it's so nice to be able to just go to Claude and be like, grab the notes from my last talk with Travis. And it goes and does a search, grabs a transcript, and now you can just start talking to the notes. And because the Fireflies has their Fred AI embedded agent, and it's obviously a stripped down cheaper version because they're not trying to spend a ton of money on tokens. Now I can go spend some serious money on tokens against those same transcripts, which is kind of cool. Safety stuff is definitely table stakes. The hooks, the sandboxed environments, the guardrails that can be deployed by central IT. We're definitely seeing this will probably be the year of enterprise winning and getting more of these tools in more of the developers' hands. Hopefully, eliminating some of the Copilot use out there and getting some real tools in their hands. I mean,
Right, and it's not just I think there's a comment here about like Copilot being Zoom versus Teams. I would tend to disagree. I find the utility of Copilot is lower just because there's a different style of interactivity that's driven there. That's my you take it for what it's worth. I'm one dude, but like I all the other tools I would agree. Like there's probably just a matter of spectrum, but like for whatever reason, it just doesn't perform the same.
Well, and the last bullet point speaks to that. I think if you're stuck and you only have Copilot, I mean, it sucks, but like you got to use it. I don't think any single tool here wins. I think each of them brings to the table different aspects, and you got to flip between them to get the most out of the whole ecosystem and experience. Like our team was not commenting yesterday that like they felt like Codex did a better job of documentation, and then Claude Code was much better at the implementation. So they would use tools as they saw them. Kind of just the gut feel is telling them I'm not going to burn much time trying to make Claude Code do good documentation when I could just go single shot docs on Codex.
100%. I've got 3 IDEs I keep on my machine, at least, like it's just like, oh, like to your point, like this one's going to go do a better job on this. Cool. I'm going to go there, do that thing.
Yeah.
Come back here. I don't think I don't think we will. I think there's enough uniqueness to each of these tools and their strengths and what they're emphasizing that we'll be in this space for a while.
Yeah, I agree. And I took Junie out of the list of contenders this time around, but I think we're going to add it back. They've been doing a ton of work over at JetBrains on it. Again, like all the other ones, it's added a bazillion features in one. So they're a super serious contender. I think JetBrains is building some amazing tooling out there. I think they just got to outlast the money burn that Microsoft's putting into VS Code, and they'll come out on top again.
Right. I mean, they have a history, right? Like they've built good tools in the past, so it's not like they're not able to. And I would agree. Like I've got 2 people I know that use Genie. And like I thought they were crazy. Like, you guys, it's like Copilot, what are you doing? And like their stories as of recent have really gotten good and targeted. I was like, oh, okay, it's really come a long way. That's great.
Yep, it's for real. I agree. So that's awesome. If we want to talk to Travis or I, here's our email addresses. Here are our LinkedIn addresses. You can grab the slides. I believe we threw those up into the chats on the various places. So those are all real links, and there's a bunch of links and notes also throughout the presentation today. So I'm excited to continue this conversation. I look forward to what the next updates are going to lead us to. So I don't know if you had any parting words, Travis, for the crowd.
Go forth and play with the tools. Like go experience them yourself. Form your own opinion, see what works, what doesn't work, and just really keep pushing forward. Not only is it the tools, there's a change to workflow. Like stay familiar, stay on top of it.
Yeah. Well, I think don't believe the hype. There's not the AI tools are not coming for developer jobs. They're coming for the jobs of developers who won't use the AI tools. These are incredible human augmentation like tools that give us feel like superpowers out there. I love playing with these every day, and I can build incredible things. And people who aren't, oh boy.
Yeah, I liken it to a wingsuit. I just hop in and go.
I love it. Now I'm going to have AI generate an image of Travis in a wingsuit. We'll have to post on the socials.
There we go.
All right, that's awesome. Well, I think we'll cut it here, and thank you all for joining us, and we'll talk to you all soon. And basically, comment, hook us up with questions out there. We are both very approachable. Actually, Travis, if you wanted to talk, you have a blog that I've been following for like the last so many months now, and I really enjoy your thoughts on the AI, and you should definitely check it out. I don't know if you want to give people the address real quick.
Oh, sure. It's aibuddy.software.
Which is a great URL.
I think because it was cheap at the time, honestly.
And if you want to follow what's going on 6 Feet Up, we've got 6feetup.com/blog. You can see some of the things we're writing about over there, but all mostly on LinkedIn, I think, is where I've been kind of talking about these things. So I try to post at least once a week, some kind of quick little topic, a quick little video.
Love your videos. Those are really informative.
Thank you. Hopefully you all learned something. Sounds good. Well, I'll take us offline. See y'all later.
Bye.